Thank you, Michael. Take us away. Go ahead, and if you would like to read it, chapter 23, and then go with the first observations, and then I'll jump in.
Alrighty, Shabbat Shalom again. Chapter 23. I think Josh put the link in the chat. So this is Genesis Targum 23. We're reading the Palestinian. Days of the life of Sarah were 120 and 7 years, the years of the life of Sarah. And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron. Abraham came from the mountain of worship and found that she was dead, to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. Abraham rose up from the sight of the face of his dead and spake with the sons of Hittah, saying, I am a sojourner and dweller with you. I pray, sell me the inheritance of a sepulchre among you, and I will bury my dead there. Responded unto Abraham, saying, Attend to us, O Lord. Great before the Lord art thou among us. In the best of our sepulchres, bury the dead. There is not a man of us who will refuse thee his sepulchre, that thou mayst bury the dead. Hope I'm saying that word right. And Abraham rose and bowed to the people of the land, the sons of Hittah. He spake with them, saying, If it be with the consent of your mind that I bury my dead from before my face, receive of me, and intercede for me before Ephraim bar Zochar, and that he sell me his double cave, which is built on the side of his field, for the price in silver. Let him give it me among you for an inheritance of the sepulchre. But Abraham the Hittite answered Abraham, of all who entered the gate of his city, saying, My Lord, listen to me. The field I give thee, and the cave which is in it, to thee I give it as a gift before the sons of my people. I give it to thee. Go bury thy dead. And Abraham bowed before the sons of Hittah. And he spake with Ephraim before the people of the land, saying, Nevertheless, if thou art willing to do me a favor, hear me. I will give thee in silver the price of the field. Take it of me, and I will bury my dead there. And Ephraim answered Abraham, saying, My Lord, hear me. The land as to its price would be 400 silline of silver. Between me and thee, what is it? Bury thy dead. And Abraham hearkened unto Ephraim. And Abraham weighed to Ephraim the silver which he had named before the sons of Hittah, 400 silline of silver, good, passing in every table, and receivable in all transactions. And he confirmed the purchase of the field of Ephraim, in which was the double cave, which is before Mamre, the field and the cave that is thereon, and all the trees that were in the field, and all the boundaries thereof round about, unto Abraham for a purchased possession in the presence of the sons of Hittah, even of all who entered in at the gate of the city. And afterwards Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field Kaphithah, which is before Mamre, that is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave therein was confirmed unto Abraham for an inheritance of the sepulchre from the sons of Hittah. Okay, so as we were saying earlier, this is a pretty straightforward, short chapter. Noel already hit me up on the side, says he doesn't have a lot. Tried to add more at the end just to make it a little bit longer, but I will split it up, and then Noel will be in the middle. Okay, so let's get there. I was working on 24 actually. Okay, I'm going to start on number one. Real quick, it just says, in the days of the life of Sarah were 120, the years of the life of Sarah. And it's amazing that Sarah is the only woman in Scripture whose lifespan is given. So that was cool. She's very important. I was trying to do quick research on 127. The only thing that really came to me was Esther. Esther was in charge of 27 lands or something like that. I thought that was interesting. A cross reference that I thought was cool. It's Isaiah 51 that says, Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, who seek the Most High. Look to the rock from which you were cut, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah, who gave birth to you in pain. When he was only one, I called him, then I blessed him and multiplied him. So I just thought that was cool. The last times we'll speak about Sarah this chapter, so I have a few things on her. Number two, it says, And Sarah died in Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron. And Abraham came from the mountain of worship and found that she was dead. And he sat to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her. So I forgot what it was. That was the last time we did a study. There was another first. I forgot what it was, but there was something that was the first. Well, this is the first time crying. Someone was crying or weeping. So obviously, Abraham just lost his wife. So, but I just thought that was interesting that this was the first time. Um, oh, that's right. First time. The other chapter. So some say Kiriath Arba is known as the town or city of the four. and we're going to talk more about that in a bit. But that's what I found that the word means. So, three separate times, the book of Joshua tells us that the city of Kiryat Arba was named after the ostensible ruler of the city, a man called Arba, who was a powerful giant or the father of the giants. In all three cases, the information appears in relation to Caleb's, the receipt of the city. Let me show you verses. I don't know why there's a big split there, but from war. So we know who the Anakim are. Joshua 15:13. According to the Lord's command, Joshua gave Caleb, son of Jephunneh, a portion among the sons of Judah, Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the forefather of Anak. We talked about Anak a bunch during our diaspora, especially in John. Joshua 21:11. They gave Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, with its surrounding pasture lands in the hill country of Judah. Arba was the father of Anak. So isn't it interesting that this is where Sarah died? She died in the land of the giants. What do you guys make about that? Okay, so some more commentary. Which is Hebron. Upon Abraham's separation from Lot, he was told to walk the length and breadth of the land that he was to be given. The first place he traveled to and settled in was Hebron. That's where he planted the trees of Mamre. So if you remember, moved his tent, went and dwelt there, built an altar there. So Hebron was where Abraham was living when he heard the news that Lot was taken captive. Abraham ended up taking 318 men to retrieve his nephew. And then finally, he lived in Hebron when he received his visit from the three messengers. That's interesting. So this is definitely a place that Yah wants us to know about. Continuing on. Caleb was rewarded Hebron, like I said, because of the faithfulness and spying of the land. Joshua verses. King David was crowned there. He reigned there for 7 years. The Hebrew root of Hebron is kavar and has the meanings of close associations, couples, which I'm going to get to in a little bit, and companions. So, like Jerusalem, Hebron is considered by the sages to be a place where heaven and earth meet. Hebron's other name means city of four. And then tradition said, and I'm going to go way more detail, but tradition says that Adam and Eve were buried in the cave of Machpelah. We've talked about that. And that Abraham was aware of this. Eventually, the cave would become the city of the four couples as Adam and Eve would join. Let's see. I thought this was cool. More on Sarah in the New Testament. Peter 3. And it's just amazing. Like, this is talking about wives, right? Likewise, wives, be submitted to your own husbands, so that even if some do not obey the message by the wife's conduct, without a word, they may be won over, as they observe your pure, reverent conduct. Don't let your beauty be external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or fine clothes. Instead, let it be hidden in the person of the heart, while the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which in God's sight is very precious. For this is the way the holy women who put their hope in Yah used to beautify themselves long ago, being submitted to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. You have become her daughters by doing what is good, not fearing intimidation. So I was just looking for New Testament passages on Sarah. Found that one. I will do, let's see what I want. I will do a few word studies and then hand it off to Noam. 4 and 6. So number 4 says, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. Give me possession of a burying place with you, that I may bury my dead out of my sight. So I was doing my word studies where it says, with you that I may bury my dead. And I just found an interesting connection. Jacob. So this is the burial of Jacob, which is interesting. Genesis 50, number 4. Now when the days of his mourning were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, if now I found favor in your eyes, please speak in the hearing of Pharaoh, saying, my father made me swear, saying, behold, I am dying in my grave, which I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. There you shall bury me. Therefore, please let me go and bury my father. That's just the same word. But it's interesting. It's in that same lineage. And finally, number 6. Here is my Lord, thou art a mighty prince among us, in the choice of our sepulchres. Bury thy dead. None of us shall withhold from thee his sepulchre, that thou mayest bury the dead. So obviously sepulture is grave. Isaiah 53, we all know that chapter. It's Messiah's chapter. He was oppressed, he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, as a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he opened not his mouth. He was taken from prison and from judgment. And who should declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave, or sepulture, with the wicked, with the rich in his dead, because he had done no violence. Neither was any deceit in his mouth. Just thought that was interesting. I love doing these word studies and the connections that you can make. I have a few left, but I will hand enough to know.
Thank you, Michael. And I really appreciate that, week after week, Michael really, hits, well, I'll use a base for you guys. I try to really give you guys some good stuff. Like tonight, we talked about the big trees. And, at the end of the week, I get through that. I'm just like, oh man, do I have anything left to give? And so, as you guys know, this was a really short chapter. What I'm going to do tonight, over the last few weeks, I've been reading from different books like Jasher and so on and so forth. When you actually look at Jasher, it gives the same details pretty much. It doesn't really, I'm not going to read from it. I will be reading from the Legends of the Jews. And there are things in this, I'm reading from it specifically because there are things that I think are really unique in there. And then there's some where it kind of veered kind of off to the left, or a quick detour that doesn't really make sense, that I don't necessarily agree with. And so we'll go over it. Now, the reason I'm pulling up this picture here is because you can see Israel. You could see the Mediterranean. You could see the Dead Sea back there. The mountains in the back would be Jordan on the other side of the Jordan River. But then you could see this mountain range here. There is Bethlehem, Jerusalem, and you can see. Oh, this is the all Hebrew version. I had an English version. Whatever. I guess I downloaded two versions. But kind of, it almost looks like the way they draw this, it looks like a giant almost. I just saw that. You see the arms, the two legs. Well, down by the two legs area is Hebron. And I want to point out that this is one mountain range. And the more I've really thought about this, fine. You guys lost me for about 15 seconds. So I don't know at what point that was, but that's okay. Okay. All good. Continue. So, as you guys know, I've talked a lot about the mountain of worship and the fact that Adam and Eve were put onto this mountain of worship after they were expelled from Eden, and how the sons of Seth lived on this mountain of worship, and that the children of Cain surrounded the mountain of worship. Well, I think it's something very similar. The more I've researched this, the more I've thought about this, I feel that this is something very similar to what we would call the mountain of Ararat, which would be interpreted to be the mountains of Ararat. It's a mountain range, not a single mountain. I think that there were mountains of worship, and that this is the range we're looking at. That the mountain of worship goes well above Jerusalem, and it go into Samaria, the Samaria region, all the way back down past Bethlehem, all the way down into Hebron. And that's important because the question is, where were Adam and Eve buried? Okay, now I'm going to tell you the answer is that I believe they were buried in Jerusalem. And that after the flood, Noah went and he then buried them again in the cave in Jerusalem. I bring that up, and you're going to see why when I read this passage. This is called the burial of Sarah from the Legends of the Jews. When Abraham with Yitzchak returned to Beersheba, they sought for Sarah and could not find her. And when they made inquiries concerning her, they were told that she had gone as far as Hebron to seek them. Abraham and Yitzchak went to her to Hebron, and when they found that she was dead, they cried bitterly over her. And Yitzchak said, O my mother, how hast thou left me? And whither hast thou gone? O whither hast thou gone? And how hast thou left me? And Abraham and all his servants wept and mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. Even that Abraham did not pray, but spent his time in mourning and weeping over Sarah. And indeed, he had great reason to mourn her loss, for even in her old age, Sarah had retained the beauty of her youth and the innocence of her childhood. And that can be obviously collaborated with where we see that Sarah was very old, 100-ish or in her late 90s, and Abimelech tried to take her as a wife because she was so beautiful. So, yeah. The death of Sarah was a loss not only for Abraham and his family, but for the whole country. So long as she was alive, all went well in the land. After her death, confusion ensued. The weeping, lamenting, and wailing over her going hence was universal. And Abraham, instead of receiving consolation, had to offer consolation to others. Now, this is kind of interesting because, Abraham wasn't completely loved in the land, and that's obviously in the Sodom and Gomorrah tale, but those cities had been destroyed. And but it seems as though Abraham had great respect and people knew who he was, and any person as wealthy as him would be well known. And it's interesting here that it's said that in a time when Abraham should be mourning his wife and the people should be consoling him, he had to console the people. I think that's kind of an interesting picture there. Let's see. He spoke to the mourning people and said, my children, take not the going hence of Sarah too much to heart. There is one event unto all, to the pious and the impious alike. I pray you now give me a bearing place with you, not as a gift, but for money. In the last few words, Abraham's unassuming modesty was expressed. Elohim had promised him the whole land. Yet when he came to bury his dead, he had to pay for the grave, and did not enter his heart to cast aspersions upon the ways of Elohim. In all humility he spoke to the people of Hebron, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you. And therefore spake Elohim to him and said, thou didst bear thyself modestly, as thou livest, I appoint thee Lord and Prince over them. And again, now, as I point this out week after week, the Legends of the Jews is sourcing multiple material to kind of merge these all together into one narrative. And there's some, really interesting insight here. And I don't know if any of this is really untrue. It's interesting because he was promised the land. There was a land of promise, and he didn't assume. He didn't assume at all that be like, well, this is going to be my land, so just give it to me. Now, I have read or heard my entire life that Abraham was being very shrewd here. This was his wife we're talking about. He wanted to make sure that he had access to it. And so he's like, I'm going to pay for this. And so there could be an exchange going on here where the other guy is like, no, I'm going to give it to you for free. And Abraham knows he's like, oh yeah, sure. You're going to give it to me for free, and then you're going to take it back and I'm not going to have claim to it. We see a similar incident in the very near future after this, where no, it's before this in the book of Jasher, where Abraham digs a well, and then some other people come along and they claim the well as theirs. And Abraham's like, no, you don't. And it actually brought Abimelech. He came into it, and he's like, what's going on here? And Abraham was given no assurance that he could keep this well. So he ended up paying Abimelech like sheep and goats and other things like that to say, look, here is my down payment to show you, assuredly, this is my well. And then Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, is like, all right, we recognize this as your well. So you even see that even if Abimelech, who is an old contemporary of his, they go way back, when he snatched his wife from him, he knows Abraham's reputation, and he's still like, yeah, Abraham, I'm not sure who to believe here. So you could see the conflict that's going on with this tomb, and why Abraham is so certain that he wants to make sure to pay for it. All right, let's keep reading. To the people themselves he appeared an angel, and they answered his words, saying, thou art a prince of Elohim among us. In the choice of our sepulchres bury thy dead, among the rich if thou wilt, or among the poor if thou wilt. You see here that they're offering him any that he chooses, and that could be an issue in the long term. Especially that we know that this cave, that it wasn't just Abraham and Sarah that was buried here. Then we see, it was Yitzhak and then Yaakov, and each of the patriarchs, they were each buried in this cave over the years. Abraham, first of all, gave thanks to Elohim for the friendly feelings shown to him by the children of Heth, and then he continued his negotiations for the cave of Machpelah. He had long known the peculiar value of the spot. Now, here's why I showed you the picture earlier. Now, you're probably a little confused, and this is where I'm like, I don't know about this. And let me just read it. Adam had chosen it as a burial place for himself. Wait, what? This is where the cave of treasures was? He had feared his body might be used for idolatrous purposes after his death. He therefore designated the cave of Machpelah as the place of his burial, and in the depths of his corpse was laid, so that none might find it. When he interred Eve there, he wanted to dig deeper because he scented the sweet fragrance of paradise near the entrance to which it lay. But a heavenly voice called to him, "Enough." Adam himself was buried there by Seth until the time of Abraham. The place was guarded by angels who kept a fire burning near it perpetually so that none dared approach it and bury his dead therein. Now it happened on the day when Abraham received the angels in his house, and he wanted to slaughter an ox for their entertainment, that the ox ran away, and in his pursuit of him, Abraham entered the cave of Machpelah. There he saw Adam and Eve stretched out upon couches, candles burning at the head of the resting places, with a sweet scent pervaded the cave. Therefore Abraham wished to acquire of the cave from the children of Heth the inhabitants of the city of Jabus. They said to him, "We know that in time to come Elohim will give these lands into thy seed. And now do thou swear a covenant with us that Israel shall not wrest the city of Jabus from the inhabitants without their consents." Abraham agreed to this condition, and he acquired the field from Ephron, in whose possession it lay. This happened the very day on which Ephron had been made the chief of the children of Heth, and he had been raised to the position so that Abraham might not have to have dealings with the man of low rank. It was of advantage to Abraham too, for Ephron at first refused to sell his field, and only the threat of the children of Heth to depose him from his office, unless he fulfilled the desire of Abraham, could induce him to change his disposition. So it sounds like the people had such a love for Abraham that this guy wasn't willing to sell his field. I don't know if he knew of the importance, according to this account, but the people are like, if you don't sell this to Abraham, we're going to, toss you to the curb. Dissembling deceitfully, Ephron then offered to give Abraham the field without compensation. So even this here is saying, look, he was being deceitful in this. And Abraham was shrewd and he knew what he was doing. But when Abraham insisted upon paying for it, Ephron said, "My lord, hearken unto me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is that betwixt me and thee?" Showing only too well that the money was of the greatest consequence to him. Abraham understood his words, and when he came to pay for the field, he weighed out the sum agreed upon between them in the best of the current coin. A deed signed by 4 witnesses was drawn up in the field of Ephron, which was in Machpelah. The field and the cave which was therein was made sure unto Abraham and his descendants for all time. The burial of Sarah then took place amid great magnificence and the sympathy of all. Shem and his son Eber, Abimelech king of the Philistines, Aner, Eshel, and Mamre, as well as the great of the land, followed her buyer. Jasher says the same thing, that Shem was there, his son Eber was there, as well as Abimelech. They were all there to pay respects. A 7 days mourning was kept for her. That's interesting because we read in 2nd Esdras that you are only to mourn for 7 days, which of course reflects 7,000 years of history as well. And all the inhabitants of the land came to condole with Abraham and Yitzhak. When Abraham entered the cave to place the body of Sarah within, this gets a little wonky here as well. We'll discuss this afterwards. Adam and Eve refused to remain there. because they said, as it is, we are ashamed in the presence of Elohim on account of the sin we committed, and now we shall be even more ashamed on account of your good deeds. So, so according to this, Adam and Eve were buried there. When Sarah comes in dead, they're like, okay, we're checking out. Like, find us another burial spot. Abraham soothed Adam, the dead Adam. He promised to pay for Elohim for him, that the need for shame be removed from him. Adam resumed his place, and Abraham entombed Sarah, and at the same time he carried Eve, resisting, back to her place. So apparently, according to this, the corpse of Eve was fighting back. But all right, so that's enough of that. And what I wanted to point out was that, yeah, Rebecca was buried there too. And when unfortunately, when you're dealing with some of this literature, you're dealing with propaganda, and I highly suspect, because what's interesting is that there is Christian literature, but Jewish literature as well, which places the burial of Adam and Eve at the mountain of worship. Now, I showed you it's a whole range, and Hebron does technically fall within what I believe is the mountain of worship. That it was actually at Salem in Jerusalem, and also that Noah, he actually took the body of Adam onto the ark, Eve as well, and he buried them again in the same spot afterwards. We already read a similar story where there was the seeds from the tree of knowledge of good and evil that was planted within his skull, which is kind of interesting because it's kind of like, you are what you eat, right? And it seems to me that there's kind of a agenda here to move away from the Messiah, because the idea was that Adam was buried where the atonement would happen. So anyways, yeah, okay, well, you guys are talking about something else in the room. Anyways, that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. It gets a little wonky there with Adam and Eve, and again, I don't know where they're sourcing that information or why they decided to source that there, because again, a lot of Jewish literature agrees that he was buried in Jerusalem. Anyways, with that, back to you, Michael.
Yeah, it's going to be a short one. I only have a few left. When I comment on this, Josh is saying, obviously it's off topic, but we're trying to figure out where some other the patriarchs' wives were buried. Rebecca was buried in Cave of Machpelah, but Rachel was initially asked, and I found this, and then he's asking where Yahusha was born. Do you know anything more about that? Like, was buried on the way to Ephrath, that is Bethlehem.
Yeah, she was. So in the book of Jasher, it was quoted in, it's either Matthew or Luke. I'm trying to think. I think it was Luke, where the children were killed by Herod, correct? And in there, it talks about like the prophecy of Rachel mourning for the sons of Israel. And so in the book of Jasher, there is an incident when Joseph is on his way to slavery, and we'll be talking about this when we get there in the Aramaic Targum study. That he's on his way to slavery, and there's actually a miraculous happening. There's only a few times where there's these miracles that happen after death. We see one example with Samuel, where he comes with the witch of Endor. He actually comes up from Sheol. But there is an incident where she starts weeping in the grave, and Joseph hears it, and he runs over there. And I believe that that's where that reference is coming from in the Gospels, because as well as where maybe the prophets are referencing it. And so yeah, that is actually there by Bethlehem where Yahusha was born, and of course it ties in with the fact that the babies were killed there as well. And I've been to Bethlehem a couple times. I actually lived there for about 3 months back in 22 years ago. Worked on a chicken farm, and I actually never visited that tomb. I'm sad to say. I don't know why, but anyways, yeah. So back to you, Michael.
All right. great summary there. We needed that because I was struggling with Josh's question, and we got to fill time too, so that was good. Okay, so number 9, he did a great job on Cave of Machpelah. One thing I'm going to do is show you guys a picture. So that he may give the Cave of Machpelah, number 9, which he hath, which is in the end of his field, for as much money as it was worth. He'll give it to me for a possession of a burying place. That's allegedly what Cave of Machpelah is. Huge. And as Noel said, this is also known as the city of the four couples. Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah. And like we were discussing, it was interesting that Jacob and Leah, not Jacob and Rachel. So, do you guys have any insight on that? Number 10, it says, and Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the audience of the children of Heth, even of all that went in at the gate of his saying. Okay, so the only reason why I wanted to read that is Hittite. So I was doing research on the Hittites. Their name means sons of terror. The Hittites were descendants of Heth, whose name means terror. I thought this was a good summary on the Hittites. So the early Hittites supplied Abraham with his cave in Machpelah, which was owned by Ephron, the son of Zohar, and which Abraham bought to bury Sarah. Abraham's grandson Esau, the brother of Jacob, acquired wives from the Hittites, namely Judith and Basemath. This was much to the grief of his mother Rebekah and father Isaac. He sent Jacob to Haran for a more suited wife. During the days of a judge, Othniel, the nephew of Caleb, the Israelites at large intermarried with the Canaanite nations, including the Hittites. So this is just some history on the Hittites, but it all started here at this cave. Okay, so number 16, it says, Abraham hearkened unto Ephron, and Abraham weighed to Ephron the silver which he had named before the sons of Hittah, 400 silene of silver, good, passing at every table, and receivable in all transactions. I'm going to get more into it on the next verse, but there's an old text called the Ugaritic text, and 3 out of the 6 real estate contracts discovered there were for the sum of 400 silver shekels. So it kind of parallels this biblical description. Apparently, 400 shekels was a common price for Canaanite real estate transactions in the so it would be 400 silene of silver between me and thee, bury thy dead. Here we go, some more. The phrase shekels of refers to a measurement of the silver's weight. The shekel is a weight they calculated based on this century BCE as an equivalent of 11.33 grams. I just did some quick on today's silver price, and maybe my math, maybe I didn't read it. You have to times it by 400. But at today's price, 11.33 would only be $8. I'm wondering if you have to times it by the 400. I don't know if I read that correctly. What do you guys think about that? So obviously, let's see. Let's do some quick math. 8 times 862 times 400 would be 3,448. So give you an estimate on today's silver price. Okay. And Josh says, yeah. Okay. So there's some more on that. The exchange system in Abraham's day. So Abraham weighed the 400 shekels of silver to Ephron. The scriptures say that this was current money among the merchants. 23:16. So what else does this scripture reveal? There was a system of currency called money in the times of Abraham. That was interesting. It was used as a medium of exchange. This was not bartering. The word's current value implies that the value of the money varied in the same manner like a stock. Silver was the form in which the money was minted. The silver had a particular value and weight called the shekel. Abraham had to weigh his silver in order to arrive at the value of 400 shekels. And how much was 1 shekel worth back then? And we kind of did the math earlier. So I thought that was good. Here's some more verses on people paying with shekels. Obviously, Yeshua too. But these are for comparison centuries later. In the desert census, each Israelite paid a half a shekel in Exodus 30. The compensation for a slave gored by an ox was 30 shekels in Exodus 21. People, as part of vows, were valued at between 5 and 50 shekels in Leviticus 27. And a man who violates a virgin pays 100 shekels. Jeremiah bought a field for 7 shekels. Okay, so it just kind of gives you in comparison and what this was a big price then, I guess, in relation to those other punishments. What do you guys make about that? This is a very important piece of land here. Okay, so I got 2 left. So number 18, unto Abraham for a purchased possession in the presence of the son of Hittah, even of all who entered in at the gate of the city. So some more summary. I thought this was a great job summarizing. If you guys weren't following along, I was, if you didn't like my reading style, this is a good kind of summary of what we're talking about. So Abraham wants to pay the full price because he wants to be a legal owner among them, a politically recognized entity, not an alien stranger borrowing space in their private graveyard. So they politely deflect his direct request to buy property, showing their reticence to accept him as one of their own. In typical, I don't know why it says it. Okay, so this, I guess, the readerization. Okay, so Ephraim doesn't want to really sell one little cave at the edge of his field. So he expands Abraham's request for one cave into the whole field. I give you the field. This is now too big to accept as any gift. A whole field with trees in it, and a cave is a significant plot. So Abraham knows he's being set up by Ephraim to pay more than he had expected for more than he initially wanted. So Abraham accepts his in large terms. I will give thee the money for the field, take it of me. And Ephraim is amenable and sets the price at an exorbitant price of 400 shekels. That is half of a king's ransom. Abimelech paid 1,000 shekels. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. So Abimelech paid 1,000 shekels to cover Sarah's honor, Genesis 20. So that is interesting. That is about a half of a king's ransom. So recognizing that is a cost for an alien to own land among them and he has no leverage. Say Abraham pays it. So again, I hope this kind of shows you the different weights and measures. Half a shekel, 30 shekels, 5 to 50, 17. Abimelech put 1,000. Abraham paid 400 for this. Okay, finally, real quick, number 19. And after this, Abraham buried Sarah's wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. So, oh, that's what it was. So, not only was this was the first time someone cried, the burial of Sarah is the first account of a burial in the Bible. And Abraham's purchase of Machpelah is the first commercial transaction. So, I know a lot of people, when you get into Torah and you're like, oh, it's, personal property and all that, they go to Joseph, and trading and all that kind of stuff. But look at what Abraham did. Abraham was the first commercial transaction. And of course, Sarah was the first burial. And Abraham was the first crier. So a lot of firsts in this chapter. I think we got done in 35 minutes. That's all I got. Anything else, Noel, or should we open it up?
No, let's open it up. Yeah, thank you everyone again. This was, obviously a very simple chapter, but I am really amazed, Michael, what you were able to pull out of a of a graveside service. And great job again. So handing it over to you guys, what are your thoughts?
What do you make of Josh's comment? It also seems like he was very particular in making sure many confirm the value. But if Abraham paid 1,000 for Sarah, she unintentionally paid for her part of her burial. It's funny.
Yeah, give you guys a few minutes to throw in anything you'd like.
Next chapter is the big one, so I couldn't get it done to do both tonight, but next chapter will be a real good one.
Yeah, Josh, what were you getting at with your earlier comment about Yahusha's birthplace? It's I'd have to look. Hebron is not far as it's probably only like 20 miles or something from Bethlehem. Oh, it's like 10 miles. It's probably like it's probably like 10 miles from Bethlehem or something of the whereabouts. Really close. I remember the first time I went there, and I'm from California, where everything is spread out. People are surprised to go to Southern California the first time. They have culture shock, and they thought, like, I've had people tell me they thought they could walk from like Beverly Hills to Disneyland. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you can't walk from Beverly Hills to Disneyland. You gotta get in your car and drive. But that's what it felt like to me. Like, all of Israel felt like Southern California, where you could just drive to everything. And the only reason why Hebron feels like a world away there nowadays is because of Palestine and the West Bank and all that kind of stuff, and they put up walls and other things. So it literally feels like you're going from east to west Berlin. But back then, I don't think it would have been that far away.
You think of Josh's comment indicating is it possible he was born in that same cave?
Oh no, no. That if because you couldn't even come close to classifying Hebron as Bethlehem. It's not that close. Um, the the reason why Bethlehem was a very okay. So Bethlehem, I don't recall there being caves with tombs in it, and there's a lot of caves all around Bethlehem, and that's one of the reasons I believe shepherds would be attracted to it, because they could actually huddle the sheep into the caves, and they made natural cages where they could just kind of put up a little area or just hang out there and didn't have to worry about the wolves and the lions and so on and so forth. And so and also they would build houses on top of these caves, and they would work as like natural basements. It was nice and cool down there during the heat. You could put wine down there and all kind of stuff, and they weren't just as natural cellars. And so the cave that they put there, where they claim Yahusha was born in, it's called the Cave of the Nativity. And again, if the Millennial Kingdom happened, I don't know if I necessarily have huge issues with this cave, especially since they claim the tradition goes way back. The earliest, the oldest church in Christendom, I believe, is the original. They found that Christians were meeting there at this cave in the first century, so very, very early back. And the cave, you actually, it's not like what they show in the movies where it's like an opening. It's literally, you have to go down into it. Like, it would have been a basement. It was probably, there was a house on top of it, and they literally went down into the basement of a house to have the baby there. But anyways, all that to say is it's a very different location. I've never been to Hebron. I've been to Bethlehem.
What is your take on the whole giant thing I was talking about? Do you have any more to add on that?
I don't. Was like a 10 to 15-minute drive. It was really, really close. So yeah, 5 miles is probably correct as well. It's literally less than a day's journey just to get there. It's not that far, and it's pretty shocking that this is kind of a little off topic, but when you get to the Gospels and the Magi show up, and they go to Herod and his boys, they go to Jerusalem, and they're like, "Hey, where's your king? We saw a star." And the Herod's boys and the temple priest, they're like, "Oh, Bethlehem. Yeah, you got to go down to Bethlehem. That's where he's going to be born." And the Magi are like, "Okay," and they go down there, and it's never recorded for us that anyone in the temple or anyone went to go down there and check it out. I mean, I would think, like, if I were looking for the Messiah to be born, it's 5 miles, people. Like, go on your lunch break. I mean, whatever. Just leave for breakfast. Be back, by dinner time. Go down there and check it out. But nobody went down there. yeah, for everyone signing out and tonight, thank you for coming. And um, yeah, it was probably. I mean, on their roads, you figure. I mean, what, 5 miles? Probably 3 hours. You could. I mean, that you could do a day walking there and walking back. And I would imagine that the road would be pretty secure too. This is Rome we're talking about. They would have had, checkpoints, all sorts of stuff. They would have had guards. I mean, if you're going to get beaten down by robbers, probably not the road to Bethlehem. Maybe like more Jericho way or something like that. You'll get the robber treatment. But
I just want to say because people are starting to leave, that Noel's presentation next week is epic. And he already told me kind of